around the world on any given day, there's about 100 million people that do not have adequate water or sanitation. Okay, do you know where a huge number of them are?
First Nations communities
right here in
Canada.
Ontario.
That's right. Yeah.
Over 30 of the First Nations in Ontario are on permanent boil water.
Right. Right. And there was one I saw not long ago. I want to say BC. I'm not entirely certain. They just can't use their water. Period. They haven't been able to use their water. Period for something like 22 years or something like that.
Yeah, and that would be. Grassy Narrows is on Lake Winnipeg. That's so bad that both the Ontario government and the Manitoba government have offered funding, and the federal government has stopped them.
Right, and that's and as Canadian people, whether you're Indigenous or otherwise, as Canadian people, we should be ashamed. We should be ashamed of that. I mean,
and you know, it's quite often when people will say to me, "Well, you know, I had nothing to do with residential schools. It wasn't me. It was, you know, those are my ancestors." Yeah, agreed. But what about today? Today we've got those kinds of situations. Today we have inequities all over the place. Today we have the highest suicide rate in the world, affecting both Native and Inuit peoples. Isn't that something to get concerned about?
Exactly.
If that were a statistic that affected any other group in Canada, they'd be screaming.
Exactly.
How can we also have almost 1,500 Native women murdered and missing, and up until very recently it was kind of like, yeah, well, whatever, because they were considered to be expendable. What kind of an attitude is that?
Exactly. What makes us believe that things will be different now, 20 years later?
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission comes out of a different impetus. The Native Commission that you're referring to earlier was one that the government did and sponsored, so to speak. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission comes out of a court case, and many people don't appreciate that. It was the survivors bringing issue to court, and the court directed that this process must be followed. So it has a much higher profile than it would if it was just a sort of little government fob-off sort of thing. This is a process that once you've opened the can, you cannot put the contents back in. You can't unknow what you know.
Right.
And I think this is part of what we feel here in southwestern Ontario is so important, to get people to hear, to know, to be aware of it, so that never again can there be this conspiracy of silence that serves to hide things.